A storm was brewing, poisonous lies creeping through industries, poisoning minds and tearing down futures. Millions were caught in the grip, even the strongest bending under its weight. But then you stepped in. No hesitation, no fear. Just pure, unstoppable force. One decisive move, that's all it took. The deception crumbled like a house of cards, leaving only the echo of your courage and the gratitude of those you unknowingly defended. You didn't just protect lives and careers. You reminded the world that one bold act can shift the tide. And that's exactly what you did. The BS never stood a chance. Energy is currency, and they were hijacking it. Not in the way most people think, not through money, but through something far more insidious. Control over your frequency. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every action you take, it all generates energy. And for decades, corrupt organizations, media conglomerates, and shadow players in the industry have been feeding off it like parasites. They knew exactly how to manipulate the energetic state of the masses. They kept people trapped in low vibrations, fear, anxiety, depression, because a confused, drained population is easy to control. Look at the patterns. Every few weeks, there's a new scandal, a fresh wave of outrage, another reason to be afraid. Politics, entertainment, even spirituality, it's all been weaponized to keep people distracted, emotionally exhausted, and spiritually disconnected. Why do you think every news cycle is designed to trigger fear and division? Why is mainstream music and entertainment filled with soulless, low-frequency content? Why are there constant distractions keeping you from sitting with your own thoughts? Because as long as you're reacting, you're not creating. As long as you're consumed, you're not questioning. As long as you're exhausted, you're not awakening. But then, something happened. Something they weren't prepared for, and you woke up. The moment you started questioning the narratives, the moment you unplugged from their artificial cycles of fear, the spell started breaking. The chosen one's awakening disrupted the frequency they relied on. Their programming stopped working. People stopped blindly accepting what they were being told. They stopped engaging in the endless emotional warfare designed to keep them weak. And that terrified them. Because their entire system depends on your participation. Their control doesn't work if you don't give them your energy. Their distractions fail when you refuse to be consumed by them. Their illusions collapse when you choose awareness over fear. So what did they do? They doubled down. They pushed more distractions, more chaos, more division, but it was too late. And you helped break their control over the collective consciousness. By choosing clarity over confusion, stillness over chaos, truth over deception, you became the glitch in their system, the virus in their program, the force they could no longer contain. And this was never just about news cycles or entertainment. This was a frequency war. And you tilted the scales. In and drop a comment. My energy is mine, and they can't hijack it. If you refuse to be controlled. Fear was their biggest weapon. Not money, not power, not control. Fear. It was the foundation of everything they built. The invisible chain that kept millions enslaved without them even realizing it. They embedded it into every aspect of life. Entertainment, news, education, and even spirituality. Because a population that lives in fear is a population that does not question, does not rise, and does not resist. And for years, they convinced people that they had no real power, that their voices didn't matter, that their choices were illusions. Every crisis they manufactured, every warning they issued, every breaking news headline designed to trigger panic, it was all part of the program. They needed you afraid, because when you're afraid, you surrender, you comply, you let them think for you. They told people that if they stepped outside the system, they would lose everything, that questioning the narrative would make them outcasts, that if they didn't follow the rules, whether in their careers, in society, or in their personal lives, they would suffer. And for a long time it worked. But then you came along. The chosen ones didn't just wake up personally, you woke up collectively. You saw through the deception, through the fear tactics, through the illusion of control. And when you stopped operating in fear, their entire system started to collapse. Sin, because fear only works if you believe in it. You shattered the illusion they spent decades crafting. You didn't just expose the lies, you reminded people of their divine authority. You showed them that power was never external, that control was never real, and that they were always free. This was a silent war on the soul, but the moment you refused to play their game, you won the battle. And now, the fear that once controlled millions is losing its grip. People are questioning, resisting, and breaking free because of you. You proved something they never wanted the world to know. And they cannot control those who are self-aware. And do you really think the people at the top, the ones controlling entertainment, media, and politics, were oblivious to what was happening? They weren't. They knew exactly what they were doing. They built this system, designed every mechanism, and carefully crafted every illusion to ensure they stayed in control. But they also knew something else. Something they feared even more than exposure. The moment people saw through the deception, the game was over. For decades, they orchestrated everything. The headlines, the scandals, the outrage cycles, none of it was random. Every controversy was a carefully placed chess move, designed to distract the masses while they solidified their grip on power. They infiltrated industries, controlled narratives, and dictated what the world was allowed to see, hear, and believe. And some of the biggest names in entertainment and politics weren't just playing along, they were being used. Handlers, contracts, secret agreements, unspoken rules, everyone had a role to play. Those who resisted, silenced, blacklisted, or worse. But there was something they didn't account for. And you, the chosen ones, didn't just wake up. You disrupted the entire system. The moment you started questioning the narratives, speaking truth and exposing their tactics, the cracks began to show, and the ones on the inside, they noticed. The celebrities who once seemed untouchable started looking different. The politicians who once stood firm in their messaging started slipping. The industry figures who had been obedient for years began hesitating. Why? Because you broke the spell. Why do you think more celebrities and public figures are speaking out now? It's not a coincidence. They're watching what's happening. They're seeing the shift, and for the first time, they see a way out. And some of them had been waiting for this moment for years. They had seen the dark side of the industry. The lies, the manipulation, the fear-based control. But they thought they were alone. They thought there was no escape. Until you came along. And your awakening didn't just affect you, it sent shockwaves through the entire industry. You proved that the system was weaker than it pretended to be, that fear was its only real weapon. And once people stopped fearing it, it collapsed. And the ripple effect is already happening. Industry figures who once thought they had no choice are suddenly questioning everything. The illusion of power is fading, because once a lie is exposed, it loses its grip. And now, the ones who thought they were in control are scrambling. They see their puppets slipping away. They see their influence crumbling. They see their power evaporating. And because once people wake up, they don't go back to sleep. And no matter what they do, they can't stop what's coming. None drop a comment. I break spells and shatter illusions if you see through the deception. And denying creativity is dangerous, not to you, but to them, because creativity is pure expression, and pure expression can't be controlled. The moment you create something original, something real, something raw, you break free from their influence. And that's exactly why they've spent decades suppressing it. Look at the industry. Music, movies, art, literature, fashion, everything has been recycled, repackaged and resold in an endless loop of uninspired, soulless content. They weren't just running out of ideas, they were silencing originality. On purpose. And then because originality is unpredictable. They can't control an artist who creates from the soul. They can't program a mind that thinks independently. They can't profit off a world where people are inspired, questioning and breaking the mold. So instead, they built a system where creativity was manufactured, where thought was scripted, where expression was limited to what they deemed acceptable. And then they made mediocrity the standard. They glorified trends over talent. They rewarded those who followed the formula and punished those who stepped outside it. But then you changed the game. You saw through it. You recognized the emptiness of the content being pushed. You rejected the programming, and the moment you did, something powerful happened. Other people did too. And creators started stepping outside the industry's blueprint. Writers, musicians, filmmakers, and artists stopped looking for approval and started creating on their own terms. Audiences began rejecting formulaic, predictable content. The industry's biggest illusion, that they decide what's popular, started falling apart. And then, because here's the truth, they never created culture. They only controlled it. And for decades, they dictated what music would go viral, what artists would be seen, what movies would be made. But the moment you stopped feeding into it, the moment you stopped validating their version of creativity, their control over originality collapsed. And now, they're scrambling. The next wave of artists, writers, filmmakers, and leaders will not be controlled. The industry is losing its grip because creativity is shifting back into the hands of real creators. And you made that happen. And now, let us take a brief moment to honor the chosen among us. Here's to the ones who see the world differently and the silent guardians, the watchful souls, den always awake, always vigilant. And they don't fit the mold, and they wouldn't have it any other way. While others walk familiar paths, they forge their own, fighting unseen battles, illuminating the shadows. And it's not for everyone, and that's okay. But if you feel it deep within, you'll know this is meant for you. No masks, no pretense. Just truth. And the Obsidian Inner Order is here, a place where kindred spirits gather to share wisdom, to connect, to transform, and over 450 strong, united not by conformity, but by purpose. If you're ready, you know where to find us. The link is in the description. And if not, that's perfectly fine. Because we're always here, watching over, making a difference in ways unseen. Here's to those who walk their own path, not for recognition, but because it's who they are. And here's to you. Thank you. And the system was built to silence those who see too much, to punish those who question, to erase those who refuse to comply. For decades, they made sure that anyone who disrupted the narrative was blacklisted, ridiculed, or removed. They told you that you had no power, that you had to play by their rules, that stepping out of line meant losing everything, and they controlled entire industries. And music labels dictated which artists made it and which ones faded into obscurity. And publishing houses decided which stories were told and which voices were silenced. And movie studios ensured only their narratives reached the masses. And media conglomerates controlled every headline, every trending topic, every viral moment. And if you didn't comply, you were pushed into the shadows. They thought they had it all under control, and they thought they could keep real voices, real creators, real disruptors locked out of the system forever. But then, you happened. And instead of staying quiet, you spoke louder. Instead of backing down, you pushed forward. Instead of waiting for permission, you created a new path. And that changed everything. And because now, it's not just you, it's a movement. And truth tellers, spiritual leaders, innovators, and game changers are stepping up. A new wave of creators, thinkers, and disruptors is rising. And this time, they're untouchable. And why? Because the system they built, the one designed to control, silence, and erase, doesn't work anymore. The tools they once used to suppress people don't have the same effect. They can't blacklist millions of awakened people. They can't suppress every independent creator. And they can't stop the new platforms, new voices, new communities forming outside their reach. For so long, they dictated the rules. They decided who was allowed to succeed, what ideas were allowed to spread, and which voices were amplified. But now, they're losing control. And because instead of fighting for a seat at their table, you built your own. Instead of begging for space in their world, you created a new one. And look around, and independent artists are thriving without record labels. And writers are publishing their own stories without industry gatekeepers. And creators are launching their own platforms, their own brands, their own movements without permission from anyone. And the craziest part, they can't stop it. And every time they try to censor, suppress, or silence, more people wake up, more people break away, more people choose freedom over fear. And new platforms, new movements, new ways of thinking. This is the future. And the old structures are falling, and they can't rebuild what they lost. And because the blueprint has already changed, and you're the one who changed it. You think they didn't see this coming? Of course they did. They've always known that their power was artificial, built on fear, deception, and manipulation. They knew that if too many people woke up at once, the illusion would crumble. And now, that moment has arrived. So what do they do when they start losing control? They panic. They push harder. They fight back with everything they have. And censorship is at an all-time high. They don't want truth spreading, so they shut it down. Independent voices are silenced. Alternative perspectives are erased. Social media platforms, search engines, even entertainment, all programmed to suppress anything that doesn't fit their agenda. Have you noticed how quickly certain information disappears? How platforms flag, remove, and discredit anything that challenges the official narrative? That's not by accident. They are scrambling to put the genie back in the bottle. But here's the problem for them. The truth has already spread. It's too late. They can't censor millions of awakened minds. They can't silence the entire internet. And the more they try, the more people notice. End fear campaigns are intensifying. And they need people to be afraid, because fear is the easiest way to control the masses. So they create one crisis after another. Economic collapse, political instability, health scares, global conflicts. There's always something to panic about. And one week, it's a new virus. And then the next, it's an economic meltdown. And then after that, another threat appears out of nowhere. And they manufacture chaos. They use the media to create an endless loop of anxiety, convincing people that they're powerless, that they need authority figures to save them. But you see through it. You don't react the way they want you to. And the more people refuse to buy into the fear, the weaker their tactics become. Some distractions are everywhere. They can't stop the truth, but they can try to drown it out. So they bombard the world with nonsense. End celebrity scandals, end social media drama, end manufactured outrage, end meaningless debates that divide people over issues that don't actually matter. And why? Because as long as you're focused on distractions, you're not focused on them. Think about it. Why is so much of mainstream media dedicated to gossip, feuds, and entertainment instead of real issues? Because they want you looking at anything but the truth. They flood your mind with irrelevant noise so that you don't have time to think, to question, to realize what's actually happening. But it's not working anymore. And they want you to think nothing has changed. And they act like the system is still strong, like they still hold all the power, like nothing is different. But they're lying, and they know they're losing, and they're terrified. They see the shift happening. They feel their influence slipping. They know that millions of people have already woken up. And no matter what they do, no amount of censorship can erase what's already been exposed. No amount of fear can control people who refuse to be afraid. And no amount of distraction can stop the movement that has already begun. They are playing defense. For the first time in decades, they are the ones scrambling. And because once people wake up, they don't go back to sleep. And you changed the energy. You shattered the illusion.nn, and they can't rebuild what's already fallen apart. And so let them try. Let them push harder. None of it will work. The shift has already happened. The foundation of their power is already collapsing. And they know it. This wasn't just about exposing the system. That was only the beginning. You weren't given this awareness for nothing. You didn't wake up by accident. Everything you've seen, everything you've learned, everything you've exposed was preparing you for something bigger. Now the real question is, what are you going to do with it? And the awakening was just step one. And for so long, they made you believe that you were powerless, that the world was out of your hands, that no matter how much truth you knew, you couldn't change anything. But look around, you already did. The lies are being exposed, the distractions aren't working. Millions of people are questioning what they once accepted without hesitation. That wouldn't have happened if people like you hadn't stepped up. But now it's time for something more. And because this isn't just about tearing down the old system, it's about building the new one. And your role is crucial. They spent decades creating a reality where creativity was controlled, thought was scripted, and power was centralized in the hands of a few. That era is over. And now. We need builders. We need artists who create from the soul, not from industry templates. And we need thinkers who challenge the status quo, not conform to it. And we need leaders who inspire and unite, not divide and manipulate. And we need innovators who create systems that free people, not enslave them. And that's where you come in. And because whether you realize it or not, you've already been positioned for a greater role. And maybe you're a creator, an artist, a musician, a writer, someone whose work can shift minds and elevate consciousness. Maybe you're a leader, someone who sees the bigger picture and knows how to guide others through the chaos. And maybe you're an innovator, someone who builds new platforms, new businesses, new communities that exist outside of their crumbling system. And maybe you're a teacher, a healer, a truth seeker, someone who helps others break free and step into their power. Listen, whatever your role is, the time to step into it is now. The old system is crumbling, but the new one needs architects. And the elites are panicking because they know they can't rebuild what's already fallen apart. They're throwing everything they have at keeping their illusion alive, but it's too late. And the old system is dying. But that doesn't mean something better automatically takes its place. And that part is up to you. You weren't given this awareness just to watch from the sidelines. You were given it because you have a role to play. And this is your moment. It's your moment to lead, to build, to create, to awaken others, to shift the energy permanently. The question isn't whether you're ready. The question is, will you answer the call? This is bigger than one person. This is a movement down in. The illusion is breaking, the control is slipping, the old system is falling apart, and they can't stop it. And why? Because you did the one thing they never expected. You woke up, and not just you. Millions who no longer believe the lies. Millions who refuse to be manipulated. And millions who are stepping into their power, rewriting the rules, and creating something new. And this is not the time to doubt your impact. This is not the time to shrink back, to question whether you've done enough, to wonder if it even matters. And it does. And you didn't just expose deception, you shifted reality itself. You didn't just reject their programming, you created a new frequency that others could step into. Listen, the world is already different because of you. Now, stay in your power, stay aligned, keep speaking, keep building, and don't let them trick you into doubting what you've done. The revolution has already begun, and there's no going back.